So, what is the coding challenge? Welcome to the CSS Code Challenge. In this CSS Code Challenge, you will complete challenges based on the CSS concepts in our Learn CSS lesson. The best way to reinforce these new skills is through practice. We've created a series of problems designed to use your new CSS knowledge. As you complete these challenges, we encourage you to post, review past lessons, look things up in the Mozilla Developer Network and the MDN CSS documentation. Let's open that in the new tab. And check out the hints and solution code if you get stuck. And most of all, have fun! Alright. Missing semicolons. So this is a challenge, huh? Of missing semicolons. Check the rule sets of 1, 2, 3, 4 and add in the missing semicolons. Now let's see, is there any error? Okay, so we have errors, that's why. So in the ID 1 rule set, there's 1. This is very simple. 2, 3 doesn't have an, oh, the first line has a missing. Easy, this is easy. Semicolons are easy. Whoa. I didn't read the content on here. These are some pretty important concepts here they've laid out. Use classes when you have elements that share many similar characteristics. Like here they made a rule set for the tips class. So I'm guessing each of these is a tip and they wanted to style them all together by using a tip class. Use an ID when you have one element that has unique characteristics. Yep, each one of these have a unique ID characteristic, so they labeled it as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And keep your code dry. Don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. Good computer science concept. Double check your syntax and declarations with semicolons and check that properties exist. Okay, so that was the main idea of this challenge. Next challenge, fallback font. Alright. Fallback font in case the first font doesn't load. Currently the body selector is using the font Roboto, which is being imported using a CDN. In case the CDN doesn't work properly, add a backup font of Courier. Oh, so we did this in the last stream. Adding a fallback font means adding it after the initial wanted font. So that should work. Separated by commas. And Robot House to be the front. CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. Alright. Next, round image. Embrace web trends by changing a square image to a circular one. Curriculum developer. Allow taps on glass. That is very frightening, for sure. You'll find him far away from any window in the office. Good tip. Okay, so to make it turn into a circle, we would want it to set it at the 50% so that the corner could curve into a circle, just like that. And we would use the border radius property. Now where would we put it for the image? For the image tag, oh look, they even allotted an empty line for us, so we don't have to press that enter. 50%. Now let's see, watch that square turn into a circle. Yay, we did it! So all we had to do to turn a square into a circle is just add a font property. to that HTML element. Next, combinator. Use a CSS combinator to make a rule set more specific. Oh yes, more specific. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. And we want to target a combination of elements of class attributes. Dot recipe. The recipe. That's it. Rule set to only select the dot recipe element. Change the dot recipe rule set to only select the dot recipe element nested within the article element. So to combine those two, tag and class name, to make it more specific, I think we have to add the dot. Yes. And we can set the what to make it bold. Was it font weight or bolded? Wait, what do we want to do with it? Oh, I'm guessing we don't want to add a new rule, so we just want to change this one. Let's see if that works. Yes, so before they were bolding everything in the recipe, but they only wanted to bold the one inside of the article. Alright, next! And that makes it more specific, targeting a specific part of the DOM. Anyways, next challenge is to the inline HTML to CSS. Take inline CSS and turn it into a proper style sheet. Turn it into a proper style sheet. Okay. Remove all of the inline CSS inside index.html and replace it by writing the correct CSS selectors and rules inside style.css. Remove all the inline. Okay, so you're saying there's inline CSS inside this index.html and replace it by writing the correct CSS selectors and rules inside the style.css. That's a lot of work. So this is all the inline styling. They added some styles for the form. Let me just cut that out. And so that means for all the form, to target the form selector, to select a form tag, we want to have a style of text align. So we just get rid of the style because we are already in the style.css sheet. And so then we want, okay, we don't have to make any other changes except put them on the correct line, and that should work. Let's see if that works. Okay, that's just for one of the tags. There is more inline styling here, and where is it? Oh, right, here's another one for the input style. This goes all the way up to here. So let me cut that out. And then this is for the input. Wait a minute, let me undo and see if this is the same as this input type. Font weight 300 with 100% font size, 25 pixels, border 0 pixels, color this thing, font family, Helvetica, new Helvetica sans serif margin. Okay, so they're the same thing. So that way, oh, this is like, I think cutting out all this inline styling helps us to not have to repeat ourselves. So to follow that DRY rule, using external styling will help us not repeat ourselves. Alright, so okay, so we can target the input as the selector and then paste all of that, details, deleting style and the 2 quotation marks, and then we just have to make it readable by entering on its own line. Oh wait, there's more, so that's not going to let us pass. And they're even going to tell us that we didn't remove the inline styling from the button. So we can move that. The style attribute. Oh, no, wait. I deleted it. Then I want to cut it. And so paste that into our style sheet for the button selector. And then we're going to delete that attribute name because we are already targeting the button for this rule set. And let's see, where does this end? It ends at every semicolon, so next line at every semicolon, and then we can run it, and that should be it. It doesn't work. Oh, it does work. Yes. Alright, so that's our first step now. Oh yes, and in this hint they even showed us how to turn the inline HTML to CSS. Okay, and now for this step we want to make the styles reappear. Link the style sheet inside the head element in the index.html. Oh, so this is not styled. And this is in its most rawest form, and to connect an external style sheet we need to add the link inside of the head, and we can do that with this syntax in the link tag, where we import our style, our file named style CSS. Okay, we don't have to change that, so that should work, and the styles should reappear. Alright, these are inputs. Okay, next step. Easy. Positions. Positioning an element is an important part of shaping the layout of a web page. Okay, I don't remember this. You have 2 div elements adjacent to each other at the moment. Change the positioning of these divs to see what color is created when the divs overlap. To change the positioning of an element, add the position property and set a value in the declaration. Read more about positions and values for positions at the MD and CSS position documentation. Some values that would be helpful to look into are absolute and relative. Change the positioning of these divs to see what color is created when the divs overlap. Okay, so looks like they allotted a line for us to play around with, so I guess we can try to put this one as absolute, and this position wait, let's see if anything changes when I make red absolute. Nothing changes. Did you set the positioning of red and blue to overlap? So how do we do that? Let me also try to add absolute to the blue circle. They're overlapping. Okay. So let me see what absolute even means. Okay. So where do we look for position? Okay, they gave us a link directly to position. Let me put this in the link if you want to check it out. I mean, put the link in the chat if you want to check that out. And then let's see. Okay, so for position, there is a static. In this demo, you can control the position property of the yellow box. To see the effect of sticky positioning, select the position. Sticky. Oh my, this, I'm about to lose battery. Let me see, I have to shake my... Alright, okay. So, to see the effect of sticky positioning, select the position, sticky option, and scroll this container. Okay. So this one is showing that the yellow box moves as you scroll, but when it's static and when it's relative, it moved. And when it's absolute, so I guess when they're saying relative, it's relative to the container they were in, but if it's absolute, it's relative to the whole entire page, and when it's sticky, it just stays. It stays. Okay. So I'm guessing why they overlap, it's because they both made it, instead of relative to each other, they were both relative to the size of the web page. Okay. Next. Display. Change the display of an element to render like the image below. Currently, the display property is the reason why the red and blue boxes are aligning next to each other. Fix this alignment by assigning the left ID left rule set to correct the display value. So we need to make a change to left. You have to assign a display value that keeps the dimension of the inner boxes, and that also allows elements to fit in the same line. Sounds like you can use the inline block element to do that. Oh, really? So you're saying I can use the display property with the value of inline block to bring that up there? It worked! And I don't know why! Let me see, let's go check out the documentation for display. They linked it for us. Oh, I should send that into the link as well. I mean, into the chat as well. Send the link into the chat as well, and so this property sets whether an element is treated as a block or inline element in the layout used for its children, such as flow layout, grid, or flex. Formally, the display property sets an element's inner and outer display types. The outer type sets an element's participation in flow layout. The inner type sets the layout of children. Some values of display are fully defined in their own individual specification. For example, the detail of what happens when display flex is declared is defined in the CSS flexible box model specification. See the table at the end of this document for all of the individual specifications. So we used this one before. inside. Okay, so inline. Oh, inline and inline block are two different. So we use inline block. So where is inline block? Inline without a block is for the outside. And then for inside, let me look for an inline block. There's inline block. It's considered as a legacy. The element generates a block element box that will be flowed with surrounding content as if it were a single inline blocks, behaving much like a replacement element would. It is equivalent to inline flow root. Let me look at an example. An image example. W3 schools is good. Yeah, let's play around in some playground where we can see inline block. So where are they using inline block? They're using it with the list inside. So let's see what happens without it. That's what I expected. Okay, so I guess inline block helps it puts them in line with each other, just like how they do here. And how did they describe it? As if they're in a flow with surrounding contents. Alright. So that's what an inline block does. Oh, this is a good discussion. What's the difference between display inline and display inline blocks? This is a good link to read through on our own. Let me send this into the chat. And let's go through this quickly. Display inline elements allow display inline and display inline block elements to sit to their left and right. It does not respect top, bottom margin, padding declaration. You do not respect width and height declaration. Only take up the width of the content. I see. So they're putting it next to each other, filling up the width of their parent. And what does this do? Inline block. Allow display inline and display inline blocks. Elements to sit to their left and right. Okay. Okay, so the difference is that inline, they do not respect top and bottom margins. And the inline block respects top and bottom margins. It takes up all available horizontal space unless otherwise specified. Okay, so inline block would adjust to the height, as they say they respect it, but they do not respect it, so it will not adjust. That's the difference I see. Next! Clean up a style sheet. Clean up the unused CSS selectors. Selectors that are not being applied to any element in index.html. Remove the 3 unused selectors and their style inside style.css by checking to see the styles applied to the elements inside index.html. Remove the 3 unused selectors. There are 3 unused selectors. The following selectors would classify as an unused selectors if the index.html file has no elements with an ID of description. Therefore, we could remove it from the style sheet without affecting anything displayed. Inside index.html, you have to compare the selectors in style.css and the elements in index.html to see if there's any effect. If you see a change in the browser after you delete a selector and run your code, then that selector has a purpose. Okay, so which one of these is an extra one? We have a lot of card classes here. There's an ID of game board. And that's it. That's two things we have. Oh yeah, and we have h2, h1, p, div. So which one is extra? Do we have something with span? Span. There's nothing. There's nothing with span here, so I'm going to delete that. Game board. Did we have something called game board? Oh yeah, this whole thing is a game board. Game card. We saw a lot of that. Wait. It's called card, not game card. I'm going to delete that. Do we have a link in here as well? A. I don't see anything with just an A inside of the card. So I'm guessing that is not used as well. Is there an image within the card? Yes, there is. So let's see if I deleted the right things. I did. Well, that was easy. Well, being able to keep CSS best practices in mind will be useful for front-end developers. So let me share this discussion as well. So it's mostly just about making your CSS easy to read by using comments to describe logical groups of styling. That would be very neat. Next! Specificity. Add a rule set in style.css to make the opacity of the paragraph containing the text "what will it be" equal to 0.5. The only element that should change is the second P. Think about the specificity of CSS rules when it pertains to tags, classes, IDs, and parent element. We want a rule set to make the opacity of the paragraph containing the text. What will it be? What will it be? Does that mean we turn this into a span? Select an ID selector. Oh, here is it. Here's the one that we want to change. This is just a comment. Okay, so we want to change this one. The what will it be inside. The what will it be HTML element that has an ID of question. So that, to target that, we can specify question. Was it question with an S? No S, okay. And what we want to do with it, we want to make the opacity equal to 0.5. How do we do that? Was it just opacity 0.5? Or was it in terms of percentage? Did you set the second P element's opacity to 0.5? Is the 0 not needed? Still wrong. Oh wait, no, this is the dot is for targeting classes. This one is an ID, so it should be a pound symbol. And it's still wrong. Opacity, opacity, opacity. Let me view the solution. So, oh, I didn't need to specify the P. Let's see if it's because of the P. It was because of the P. Okay. So now let's change the color of the H1 to this color. And to do that, we can just add a color property. Wow, I never saw this before. Why did they use a caret sign? I mean the greater than symbol. But it worked, so I don't know. Anyways, next, padding versus margin. A padding versus margin challenge. Take the initial teal and purple boxes that have a height and width of 100 pixels and manipulate the padding and margin properties to get the image below. So we want to move this lighter blue color to the right and make it longer. Move this navy blue to the right as well, somewhere in the center, and make it bigger in both ways. And it needs to be separated by some margins. Oh, it's a teal and it's a purple box that have a height and width of 100 pixels. So we want to expand the width of this to 200 pixels and add the margin of 100 pixels on the top, bottom, and left. I don't know what any positive value means. Does that mean arbitrary? Do we get to pick anything that we want? Maybe it's auto. Change only the padding and margin properties of the teal and purple. Okay, so if we just want to change padding and margin, then that would mean this has a padding of 200 pixels, right? I mean, a padding just on the right side to make it double in width, and the padding would be all around. It could be just a right and bottom, but it could also be around of 50 pixels. That way, if you add the left and right, that would be 100 pixels extra from the top and bottom. That would be also altogether 50 pixels above, 50 pixels on the bottom. That would make it 100 pixels bigger. Remember, the initial boxes have the dimensions of 100 pixels height and width. Right, so padding adds space inside the element, and the margin property adds space around the element. Each of the two properties have top, left, bottom, and right sub-properties. So there's multiple ways of getting from this to this. Let's see if I could do it all in one line without having to target each specific direction. For the teal, I can do a padding just on the right side. So maybe I could just set it for the right to have 100 pixels. And for the margin, the top would be 100 pixels. The right would be auto. I think it would be auto. And the bottom would be 100 pixels. I think they said that adjacent vertical margins do not add up, so you can just specify that to be 100 pixels. And on the left, it's also 100 pixels. So let's see what that does. It's looking close to what we want. Now, wait a minute, they're saying we don't have the correct amount of margin to the teal selector. There's 100 on the top, 100 to the left, right is anything, to the bottom is 100 pixels. Let's see, let's write the one for the purple one first and then see if it's still the teal is wrong. So for the padding, it would have a padding of 50 pixels all around. And the margin, the top would be 100 pixels. The right would be arbitrary. The bottom will be 50 pixels, and the left will be 100 pixels. So let's see if that works. It looks like it works. But for some reason, they're saying correct amount of margin to the teal selector. The correct amount of margin to the teal selector. The margin, they're saying the margin is wrong. 100 pixels on the top. Right is arbitrary, bottom is 100 pixels, left is also 100 pixels. So I don't know what could be wrong. So let's view the solution. Alright, let's see the solution. Oh, so... So this is what they have. They have a padding of 0 for top and bottom, 50 pixels for left and right, which is basically the same, but I guess the result would be the same, but if they are to look at the internal padding and they want it around on both sides, then it would be 0.50 pixels. So let's see if this will change it. But also, they set 100. Okay, maybe they didn't say anything about the padding. They said something about the margin, so let's just change the margin. I forgot what it was. What was it? Well, they said, what did they say? They set the margin to 100 pixels around all sides. And let's see what that does. So even though okay, I see. So because they're starting off, they have set the margin to 100 pixels. There will also be a margin of 100 pixels to the right, and then the extra space Doesn't matter. Alright. Cool. Wow, is this ever a case that would happen? Setting the margin, but does not show up? The adjacent margin combines into a single margin and will compute the adjacent margin with the highest value. Oh, they're talking about the margin collapse here. And that was what I was talking about. So let me just share this link with y'all. And then move on to the next and final challenge. CSS Code Challenges Review. Great job on completing the CSS Code Challenges. To recap on what you just practiced, edited an image to make it round, targeted specific elements CSS, transferred inline CSS to a style sheet, refactored a CSS style sheet to remove extra selectors, manipulated padding and margin to align elements. That's the one where we use that inline block for display. Added a fallback font just in case a font can't be displayed. Separated declarations using semicolons. Change the display property of an element. Assign the position of elements to overlap. And that's the one where we used absolute. And if you are all interested in this, let me also share this link to nerd over. Alright, and now that. And what is this one saying? So some of the common things we should look out for is not specifying a class name with a period, not using the curly braces, having the right syntaxes, typos of course, and separating name from the value of a colon. Okay, that's easy stuff. Alright, so that's it for this stream. And in the next stream, we will go through. How did I go through this first before this one? We will go into display and positioning. Alright, thank you all for sitting with me. Hope you learned a lot. See you all next time.